In today's episode, we'll answer a question about chimneys.
And later you'll meet Olivia, who's restoring a home that has been in her family for 11 generations.
But first, I'm Stacy Grinsfelder.
And I'm Daniel Cantor.
You're listening to True Tales from Old Houses. Hi, Daniel.
Hello. How's it going?
Good. I, again, need to apologize for the bird song in the background of my audio today.
You're like Snow White.
I am. I'm living in a Disney movie. Now that I don't have Millie, my yard is full of deer. There are birds out every window. It's delightful.
Is that a mouse behind you with a tiny broom?
They're making me a dress. Pay no attention. They're making me a dress. Yes.
How exciting.
No, the windows are still missing from my office, and it's like I'm recording outdoors. I kind of like it. It's pleasant, but I'm not sure what it does to my tracks over here.
I feel it's spring, summer ambiance. I like it.
Well, excellent. Before we launch into today's episode, I do want to say a very special thank you to our sponsors for Season 12, The Window Course from Scott Seidler of the Craftsman blog, Sutherland Wells, Repaint Studios, and Old House Hub from My Old House Fix.
Thank you, guys.
We couldn't do it without you, that's for sure.
Could not, would not, don't want to.
Exactly. You said it. All right, a few things to say. Interesting tidbits that might...
Things to say on a podcast.
I know.
Well, I never. All right.
All right. Full disclosure, you and I are recording this episode a little bit earlier than we normally would. And at a glance, right now, there are still a couple of spots left for the Wood Window Workshop at Silver Lake for the July 18th through the 20th. However, I am unsure of the status today as all of you are hearing this episode. So I encourage you to go check out blakehillhouse.com, click on that link for the Wood Window Workshop at Silver Lake. And if everything's sold out, there's still a waiting list. So all is not lost. During that weekend, you're going to learn to restore sash from start to finish. And new this year, I'm actually demonstrating linseed oil paint, which we've talked about.
Oh, cool.
On several different episodes, including the mini-sode last week. It's still a mystery for so many, and I'm excited to share the procedure and what it looks like when it's dry and all those details, what I know so far.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Can I interject? I was in the building a few weeks ago, and I was at the lake, and they're about to embark on all this construction that is really, really exciting for them. Like, this has been years in the making. Brad's been super involved. So by the time the workshop happens, I think a lot of that work will have been done. And so again, you're really part of the process of restoring this really, really interesting building. So
that is great news. I'm glad to hear about that. I do want to remind everybody, too, that Silver Lake Institute, I know it's getting to be the time crunch is real at this point for booking any sort of plane tickets, which you could if you wanted to. But Silver Lake Institute is actually just a half day's drive or less or more, a little bit, plus or minus.
Give or take.
Give or take. From the Hudson Valley, Toronto, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, all those, as you said before, it's Rust Belt friendly.
Yes.
All right. One more thing. Do you have time for one more thing?
No.
Am I dragging it on too long? I know that I don't want to lose your interest.
No. Are you mocking me?
I'm a little bit mocking you. Yes.
It's fair. Okay.
The book giveaway. Scott Seidler and I are signing 2 copies of our book, The Case for Historic Windows. That giveaway is still active for just a few more days. So that's it. It's June 6th is the last day to enter that giveaway. So go to truetalesfromoldhouses.com/giveaway to enter.
Now, I know I asked you last time, but have you signed the copies yet?
Yes.
Oh, and you're happy with it?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, is there a reason why you would?
Well, I've just learned, like, with the antique store and having to write price tags, I probably write 4 price tags for every item because I screw up.
Oh, because you're picky. All right.
I get ahead of myself with letters and then I spell things wrong. I don't know.
Okay.
I've really fallen out of the habit of handwriting, I think, maybe.
I had some practice at the Window Preservation Alliance conference because we sold books there, and I signed them there with Scott, and therefore I fine-tune what I would like to say to people and how I would like it to look. So we're all good in that department.
A super professional author. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I can't wait to see who wins, though. We're going to announce it on If not the next episode, the one right after that, before the season ends, because we are coming to an end. This season 12 is coming to a close.
That was fast.
It was really
Didn't
fast.
it feel fast?
It does. It feels fast in the beginning, a little slow in the middle, and then all of a sudden we just go to a speeding, and then it becomes extra fast at the end.
Yeah. So enter that giveaway, truetalesfromoldhouses.com/giveaway.
Yes. Do you have any follow-up? Anything happening to you in your life that you would like to share?
Well, I've tried some new apples, just real fast, just because I feel this is a public service.
It's fine. We have a little bit of time for Apple talk.
Just super, super fast, just added to the list. Snapdragon.
Oh, interesting.
Cosmic Crisp.
Okay.
And Macintosh, just to throw in a classic.
Right. And these are all apples that you picked up in the grocery store?
Correct.
Okay.
Out of season.
Right.
From the grocery store. Yeah. Just in case you missed this really important news from weeks back, I decided I should try to figure out what type, brand, species,
type, I guess. Variety.
Genus?
Variety.
Perfect. I should try to figure out what variety of apple I actually like beyond just the basic division of red and green. And so that's the journey I've been on. So I keep trying new ones.
So of those three, what did you decide?
Huge fan of both Snapdragon and Cosmic Crisp. I would say Cosmic Crisp has a little bit of an edge, still not knocking Fuji off the top of the pyramid. Gosh, words are hard today.
I don't know. I know.
The throne. Well, anyway, so Fuji still number one, but I'm putting Cosmic Crisp at number 2 and Snapdragon right below it.
Wow.
Really good apples. And Macintosh way at the bottom.
Yeah. We may have to regroup about this next fall when apples are in season and you're willing to share this ongoing journey of apple discovery.
I only like them out of seasons, too.
From the grocery store.
Yes, I would love that, assuming the passion is still there.
Right. It ebbs and flows, I'm sure.
But I am eating so many apples.
Each season I try to come up with a theme. I don't always share the theme, I guess, with our listeners, but the theme.
What was our theme this year?
Yeah, the theme develops over time. And I really feel like the theme for season 12 is just you doing adult things and explaining them. You've taken charge of your health, you're trying apples, you've talked about laundry, you're planning a full house restoration over a room by room. So I've really seen you blossom.
Guess what I did today, Stacy? Guess what I did? You'll never guess.
Oh.
I made an appointment with a dermatologist to do the full body, skin cancer screening.
You are so smart. I am so proud of you.
I know.
Watching you blossom as an adult has been a real privilege this season. So,
Thank you. So we'll find out if I have any
Well, I'll be crossing my fingers that the answer is no.
Thank you. It'll be a couple weeks, but
all right. Well, we do have to take a quick break. We've got a listener question coming up next.
Okay. See you on the other side. True Tales from Old Houses is supported by The Window Course. The Window Course, created by our friend Scott Seidler of the Craftsman blog, is a step-by-step do-it-yourself program that will teach you everything you need to know to successfully restore the wood windows at your house. It is self-paced, so you can go as fast or as slow as you need, and there are several price points to fit your needs and budget.
Spring is here, and summer is right around the corner. Now is the perfect time to restore windows. And the Window Course has all of the information you need all in one place.
Scott is offering his students a special deal. So if you sign up for the Lifetime Access Package or the Training Package, you'll also get a free infrared paint remover.
Even better, the Window Course is offered with a money-back guarantee, and Scott is giving True Tales from Old Houses listeners a special discount. For 10% off, visit thewindowcourse.com and use the coupon code TrueTales.
True Tales from Old Houses is also supported by Sutherland Wells. All of Sutherland Wells products are handcrafted in Providence, Rhode Island with the highest quality sustainably grown tung oil. Tung oil, which is native to China, has been used for centuries as a durable finish for wood, metal, and stone.
Polyurethane, that's just plastic. And unlike polyurethane, tung oil finish penetrates the surface of the wood so it flexes and it contracts as the conditions change. And that makes it the perfect pre-finish or protectant for everything from fine furniture to window sash and sills.
Stacy and I have both used Sutherland Wells products throughout our houses, but whatever you are working on, Sutherland Wells has an entire product line available for siding, hardwood floors, furniture restoration, cutting boards, really, you name it.
To learn more about the complete product line, visit Sutherland Wells, that's WELLES, sutherlandwells.com. And to save 10% on your first order, use our coupon code TrueTales. We're back. Welcome back, everyone.
Hello, we're back for Q&A. What do we got?
Oh, I like it. We need a jingle.
Oh, no. I can't lock myself into that.
Today's question comes from Natalie, and it's about a chimney. Are you ready for this one?
Yes, maybe.
I don't know that we've ever had a chimney question before, but remind me if you come up with something.
I feel like we did once.
Oh, maybe so. Okay.
Maybe it was a fireplace. We've definitely had a fireplace
We've done
question.
fireplaces, but not necessarily chimney.
I feel like there was some kind of chimney question too. Anyway,
Right.
doesn't
Okay.
matter.
So Natalie's question is, she says, our chimney isn't used anymore. Should we cap it, remove it, or just leave it alone? I don't have any information about where this chimney is or why they don't use it anymore, but that is the question. And I would love to hear what you think about that.
Whew. Okay. I think you raised some relevant points, which is number one, why is it not used anymore? So I'm going to say there's multiple reasons. It could have been a chimney that was never like a firebox fireplace like we think of fireplaces. Could have been for venting a stove, could have been for venting even just a hot water heater or boiler. So I think it is really dependent on what the benefit of removing the chimney is and what benefit like the chimney has to the structure. So I am basing this off of my own mistake, perhaps, which is I had a chimney that was also unused. It was causing possibly, debatably, some roof issues that probably could have been resolved. However, I had to do the roof when I first bought the house. At the time, to me, this was a totally non-functional, get rid of it. So we tore it down. I kind of regret that decision because it was very beautiful and it came right up through the center of the gable. Like it added architecturally to the house and I miss it a little bit. That being said, I can't honestly say that I wouldn't make the same decision because it had various benefits to the interior, one of which was creating the room that is now my laundry room. It used to have a chimney like butting into it and the machines wouldn't have fit if that were still there. So that is a benefit to losing it. Also, the cavity in the wall below is a nice big chase for plumbing and electric now. So I would say if it's not really in the way and it does add architecturally to the house, I guess cap it. Rain going down there, I suppose. But
no, or birds.
Yeah, or birds or tiny people.
Right. All those Disney creatures that are coming down to help me out these days.
It happens. It happens. That being said, if the chimney is non-functional, not beautiful, and there are additional benefits to removing it, I don't think that's such a bad thing. I feel like I need more information about this chimney.
Yeah, it is a hard question because when it comes to old houses, my first thought is always first do no harm. So don't do anything that you can't undo later. And by taking the chimney down, it would be very expensive if you ever needed to have it back. The reality is, who would do that? Probably no one. I don't really have a lot that I feel differently about than you do. I had a chimney taken down. It was a small one. It actually was probably there for venting at some point, but there was nothing currently vented out of it. I do have a chimney that has lots of vents for my hot water heater and everything, but this one was not, and it was crumbling, and it was going to be one of those situations where I would either have to pay somebody to rebuild it. It was kind of beyond the repointing situation because we had bricks that were actually just falling off in pieces and such. So I had it taken down and I had the roof fixed over it and I have no regrets. And we just took it down. It's still in my attic and it still goes all the way down to where it terminates in my basement. But I just had it brought down below the roof line in the attic and then the roof just fixed over it. That's how I handled it.
That's what I did originally, then ended up taking the rest of it down years later. But I think to wrap up, maybe just like for functional reasons, if the chimney is not currently venting anything, it is highly, highly unlikely that it would in the future. First of all, most of these new things like boilers, hot water heaters, etc., like they vent through the side of the house, not through a chimney. So it's very unlikely it would be recommissioned for that purpose. And if it is connected to a firebox and you have no interest in doing wood burning, like there's other options that would not actually require it to vent. So yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I feel like that's a non-answer, but
I don't know. I think we've given her something to think about, certainly. And I don't really see a wrong answer here I don't see a wrong answer here, Natalie, as long as you know for certain it's not being used as a vent. That would be something that you would just absolutely have to know before you ever thought about capping it or taking it down.
And how do you feel about the leave it alone option?
I'm fine with leave it alone. I don't have a problem with that. The only reason why I took mine down is because it was falling apart. But if it hadn't been, wasn't bothering me, just a chimney there, you know? It is a place for potential water intrusion if the flashing goes bad. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess, is my thought.
I will say, I feel like roofers often, they really want to take the chimney down and just roof over it. So it will be more expensive to keep the chimney because the flashing around the chimney is a kind of different job. And it's, there's material expenses there, especially if you go with like copper flashing or something.
And so many of them do it wrong too.
Correct, they do. But yeah, don't be, I guess, overly sold on the idea that like this thing is causing all this damage and it'll just get worse. And I guess I've heard all of these things and generally they're not really true. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Natalie. We appreciate the question, and I hope you appreciate the answer.
I hope it's a helpful answer for you, Natalie. And if anybody has any questions for us to answer in an upcoming episode, shoot us a message through the contact form, or you can leave us a voicemail. Daniel, would you like to share with everyone how to leave a voicemail?
I would. And before that, I'd like to note this part is not in the script, so I have to ad-lib every time. It's a microphone icon in the bottom right corner of our website, truetalesfromoldhouses.com. Click that icon. It will take you through a few prompts, and then you will be able to leave your beautiful voice on a message for us.
And we can't wait to hear it. I will say we're almost out of season here. So we've got one more episode where we'll answer listener questions here in season 12, but we will gather your questions all summer long and look forward to answering them this fall. All right, let's take another quick break.
Okay, our interview with Olivia is up next.
True Tales from Old Houses is supported by Repaint Studios. Daniel, in the past, how did you store your paint tray when you were mid-project?
I'll be honest, I would store cheap plastic paint liners in the trash.
Well, similar issue here, except I used a garbage bag and that was a sticky mess. But now I use the repaint tray.
I have also made the conversion. Let's spread the word.
Billy, the inventor, knew that this was a problem for so many, so she created the solution, and now her woman-owned business is disrupting the paint industry. The repaint tray solves that mid-project paint storage problem. It has a reusable silicone liner, an airtight lid, and it keeps your paint fresh for weeks.
Weeks, like weeks, and more weeks.
It's like Tupperware, but for your paint tray.
Absolutely. The tray itself, I would like to note, is a very heavy-duty metal, so it doesn't slide around or wobble when you're using it. Plus, when you're done painting, you just let the paint dry in the silicone liner, and then you can peel it right out like the next day, and man, does it feel good.
The tray, silicone liner, and lid are built to last, which is better for you and the planet. It's the last paint tray you'll ever need, so save those garbage bags for the trash can.
Snag one for yourself at repaintstudios.com. And for 10% off your order, use the coupon code TrueTales10.
True Tales from Old Houses is also supported by Old House Hub, brought to you by My Old House Fix. Next question, Daniel. Have you ever spent hours scrolling Facebook groups, Reddit threads, obscure websites, random YouTube videos, trying to find answers about your old house problem?
I think you know the answer, but in case you're not sure, I absolutely have. Not to mention those deep dives where you come out 3 hours later, you know everything about a certain topic that is totally unrelated to your project and haven't meaningfully made any progress. Does that sound like a thing?
That sounds like a thing. And that's where we are excited to tell everyone about the Old House Hub from My Old House Fix.
The Old House Hub is like your headquarters for all things Old House. It's an exclusive online community where you can gather resources, browse archives by topic, and connect with fellow enthusiasts and get expert advice too. It's a place where you can share your passions without getting lost in endless social media feeds.
There's no creepy AI algorithm suggesting totally unrelated content. It's just good, meaningful conversations with people who get it. So no more scrolling, no more headaches, just connection and answers.
It's like that good old school internet, but for old house lovers. And the best part is that right now, True Tales from Old House's listeners can get a 1-year membership to the Old House Hub for free with the coupon code TrueTales.
But that great deal is only available during this season of the podcast. So when season 12 ends, the deal ends.
So get on it. Visit oldhousehub.com to join the Old House Hub community for free and finally have a go-to place for your old house questions, projects, and inspiration.
Today, we are joined by Olivia. During the pandemic, she and her husband took a leap of faith and became the next caretakers of Poplar Grove Farm, a place that's been part of her family's history for 11 generations. She brings a deep appreciation for its past and a thoughtful vision for what comes next.
I'm Olivia Wood, and I am the owner of Poplar Grove Farm in Centerville, Maryland.
Hi, Olivia.
Hi,
Hello.
Olivia. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again.
I feel like I should give people some context. First thing is, we just mentioned Olivia on the podcast a few episodes ago. You and Eric were the ones that had planned on starting your project in, 2021. And then you finally broke ground in October of 2024. And Daniel and I met you at House of Brinson. So it's great to see you again.
It's so nice to see you. That was a real highlight. That was one of our first kind of adventures back into the world after the lockdown period. And we had such a good time. Susan and Will were wonderful hosts, and it was such a pleasure to get to meet you all. And I started listening to True Tales from Old Houses in 2020 because that's when Eric and I got serious about this renovation project. It was really fun to put faces with voices. And Daniel, I followed you on Instagram. And so I felt like I was meeting a celebrity, meeting you and talking to you about, your kitchen and stairs and all that good stuff.
And we're still talking about his kitchen and his stairs.
Yeah. I was cabinet shopping this morning.
Oh, it never ends.
Yeah, that was really fun to get together at that time. And those were our first live shows. And so I remember setting that up and thinking, oh, this will be great. And then I got there and I was so nervous. I mean, it was very stressful to be like looking out at everybody and realizing, oh, there's an audience. So much has changed since then. And I feel much more prepared for it. So hopefully we'll do some more live shows at some point. If I can talk you into it, Daniel.
Of course. No more Will Brinson cocktails for me, though.
Oh, yeah. No more Will Brinson cocktails for me either. So that's a story for another time. So... All right. Well, you have this project going on in Maryland. And of course, we had a little preview of that when we were talking about your during the follow-up a few episodes. So let's just, start there because this is a family property. So give us a little context about how you came to own Poplar Grove.
Sure. It depends on how far back you want me to go.
Keep going. Go back as far as you want.
Okay. So my family has lived at Poplar Grove and an adjacent farm for 11 generations. I'm the 11th generation to have grown up on not Poplar Grove, but a farm that's across the road. And at one point they were all one farm and they got divided up over time. So it's, like I said, how far back do you want me to go?
Well, 11 generations. I don't know how my family does go back 11 generations, but I couldn't go back more than 3 if I tried real hard. So, wow.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I wouldn't say it's super uncommon for this area of the Eastern Shore. The Eastern Shore of Maryland is, if you're looking at Maryland, it's that little part on the right that is separated by the Chesapeake Bay. So it was a pretty isolated area for a long time. I think that the Bay Bridge was only built, I can't remember when, but I want to say it was the 50s or something. It was pretty recent, relatively speaking. So there are families who have been there for a very long time. And the Emery family, that's the family that my family is. The land grant for Poplar Grove is from 1669. So quite a long time ago. But fast forwarding to relatively modern history, Poplar Grove, like I said, I didn't grow up on Poplar Grove. I grew up across the road on another farm. And when I was, I believe, 8, my dad inherited Poplar Grove from a cousin who passed away. He didn't have any children. He never married. And he left the farm to my dad, who was about the age that I am now, which is kind of a funny full circle thing. But my dad and my mom had just renovated the house that I grew up in, which is an old house, an old Victorian house. So we definitely were very rooted to that house and that farm across the road. And so they didn't have any plans to move into Poplar Grove. So my dad has sort of been kind of taking care of it as best he can. He has a full-time job. It was a project then and it was a project now. And my dad, he always says that Poplar Grove was a place in need of a plan. And that's kind of how it was for pretty much my whole lifetime. But then in 2020, my husband Eric and I, right before the pandemic started, we were living in DC and we were thinking about buying a house. And we were looking at houses in DC. And everything I liked was old and falling apart. And everything that Eric liked was old and falling apart. And I just could not, in my own conscience, take on an old crumbling home that was not the one I knew would be my responsibility at some point. And then COVID happened. And I like to say that during the pandemic, everybody chose to do something to disrupt their life in some way. And for us, we were like, well, why don't we just renovate Poplar Grove instead of this other plan that we thought we had? I think because the pandemic did a lot to recontextualize how we thought about work, remote work, commuting. All of a sudden, DC to where the farm is on the Eastern Shore just really didn't feel very far anymore. I always like to say Eric is a big hero of the story because Poplar Grove has been in my life for a long time, but I never thought I would marry someone who would also look at it and think, this is a good idea. I'm really very grateful that he is also interested in doing this with me because it would be impossible without him.
So I want to take a pause for a moment because you decided to take on this house, but I did a little research on you and Poplar Grove, and it sounds to me like this house was pretty packed full of stuff before you got it. And that stuff, I guess, that was papers. Am I correct?
Well, there was everything. If you can think of it, it was probably there. But there were a big chunk of it were papers. And a lot of these papers were not significant. A lot of it was trash. But a big chunk of it were treasures. And we have a good family friend. His name is Adam Goodhart, and he is a professor of American history at a local college called Washington College. And he used to take some students to Poplar Grove. I think he taught a class, and it was called Chestertown's America. It was kind of talking about a period of American history very in a local sense. Because, there's a lot of history in this area.
Sure.
And so he would take students to Poplar Grove because it was, and I think he had this cute line where right before they would drive down the driveway, he would turn in the bus and say, fasten your seat belts. We're going back in time. Because when you drive down the driveway, it's looking a little less so like this these days. But for a really long time, you would drive down the driveway and it did kind of feel like you're time traveling because the trees were big and full of vines and it just looked very undisturbed. And then you'd pull up to this big grand old house and with its peeling paint on the shutters and stuff. And then you'd go inside and it was just sort of a place where time stood still. And one of the times when he was there with his students, a student who would eventually become my coworker when we worked together on the papers project, he noticed this old document peeking out of a peach basket. So extremely high-tech archival storage was happening in the house. And he pulled it out and it was, a letter from the 1800s. And the more they started kind of looking around, the more they were like, oh, there's a lot of stuff here. And so Adam and my dad talked about, what should we do? And Adam, as a historian, was like, I really think that we should do something to get these papers out of the house. And so he contacted Dr. Ed Pappenfuss, who at the time, he's now retired, was the Maryland State Archivist. And so he came out to Poplar Grove and he was looking at just a sample of the papers that my dad and Adam had pulled out of the attic. And my dad remembers him saying like, this is significant. And my dad was like, I mean, if the Maryland State Archivist is standing in your house and telling you something is significant, I guess you should listen to him.
Right. So this project is basically you decided that, or your dad, or who he owned the property, decided that these papers were important enough that they needed to be removed from the house and archived. I read a quote and I thought it was funny because I was picturing this. Daniel and I just went to Taliesin West and we did some episodes there, and we were talking to the archivist there, and it made me think about your project, or your project made me think about it, and vice versa. But this is a direct quote from one of the things I read, and it said, the first stage of processing was to flatten, folder, and box the collection as quickly as possible, removing the papers from peach baskets, lard tins, attic trunks, outbuilding attics, and second floor heaps in which they were found. And then, of course, placing them in absorbent folders that would remove the unwanted moisture and dry out the paper. And I thought, wow, what a project.
Yes. And that list leaves out the unsavory bits like the mouse poop and
gross.
Other stuff that you don't want to know.
Other moisture.
Other moisture and detritus. Yeah, it was like a real excavation adventure. I got involved because I was home for the summer. I was in college. I was, I think, between my freshman and sophomore year. Coincidentally, I had just gotten a work study at the college I went to, and they just placed me just in happenstance in the archives at my college. So I had this archival experience that was just, I mean, I liked the job. It was a really good time. I kind of have this sort of joke that I don't even know if I'm in control of my life or if Poplar Grove is sort of like mapping out my path for me and I'm just a passenger because there's so many funny twists and turns where the house kind of pops up or nudges me a certain way. So I was home from college. I was looking for a summer job. I had just gotten this archival experience, and so I helped do it too. And it was a lot more hands-on than my archival job in the college because those papers were very orderly. There was no mouse poop. It was, way more civilized. But yeah, the papers that we were pulling out of Poplar Grove, they were very dirty. It was the first time I'd ever worn like a face mask. I was actually looking at old photos from that time, and I was looking at them like around 2020 or 2021 when we were all used to wearing masks. And there's this photo of me standing in what was then the kitchen at Poplar Grove wearing an N95. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I totally forgot about that. And it was because of the dust and the poop and all of the gross stuff.
Yeah. So Nicole from Taliesin West, I think they had a little bit of a different situation. Things weren't quite as dirty, but they still had like bags of papers, shopping bags, just because you know how people are. I mean, I'm the same way. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to do with this stuff. It seems important. So rather than make any sort of organization attempt, I'm just going to stuff it in this bag and maybe get to it later. The difference is maybe I'll throw it away sooner than later. And you were the recipients of these, these archives, unkept archives. So Daniel, do you have any questions of her?
No.
You're just listening.
No, I do. Do you know when the house was last occupied?
Yes. So the house was last occupied in the 90s. So my cousin who last lived there, his name was Lloyd, and he passed away in 1998. I think towards the end of his life, he may have been living in like a smaller apartment in town because the house, I can't imagine how overwhelmed he would have felt living there by himself. And the house, I was listening back to your interview that you all did with Bill Chapman from Enon Hall, and the way he described his cousin who lived in the house before he and his wife took it on, he said something like the house got away from them. And that is such a good way to talk about how Poplar Grove was for all of my lifetime and probably a lot of Lloyd's lifetime. And he also, at some point during his adulthood, like the dynamics of the house are really, I don't think, best suited for a house to really thrive. So his parents, they got married, they had him, they were living in England, and they were planning to move back from England to the Eastern Shore and renovate the house. And his dad was an engineer, and he went to a job in Spain. He caught the Spanish flu, and he died. That was, I forget when the Spanish flu was exactly.
1918.
Right, yes, exactly. So that gives you a time frame of when this was. And so then Lloyd and his mom eventually moved back to the United States, and they moved to Maryland. And I'm not sure when everything happened, but I know that Allie, his mother, she did renovate the house. And I think that was the last time the house was renovated. She's another unsung hero of Poplar Grove. Like, she was like an in-law who tragically became a widow with a young kid really early and still took on this crazy house in Maryland, I guess for her son, or, maybe she also loved it too. I don't know. But eventually she remarries, and then she passes away, and then Lloyd's stepfather remarries. So at some point in Lloyd's adult life, he was living in the house with his stepfather and his stepmother, but he owned the house and the farm. And I thought a lot about like how so much of the house's success as like a thriving building that is getting the maintenance it needs and the creative touches and the care really depends on like what are the dynamics of the people that are living in there. And I think that like a happy family or a happy person or a happy couple that is just really cohesive really plays a lot into that.
That makes a lot of sense.
I don't know what the dynamics were but I just imagine if you're an adult and you're living in a home with your step parents, it's just like I don't think it was successful.
Quite strange.
Yeah, very strange. And I think that it plays a lot into maybe how the house got away from everybody. Because I don't think that that's like a really great dynamic for decision making about like, okay, we really need to fix the roof, or wouldn't it be fun if we repainted this? Practical stuff and fun stuff are hard to make those decisions. So that was a very long answer for when the last time someone lived in the house.
No, super interesting. Like, that's such an interesting point.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've never thought at all about that, but it makes a total sense. I mean, he owns the house, but he's these two adults who probably care about each other. I mean, they're married to each other. Maybe they don't want to make the decisions because it belongs to Lloyd, but Lloyd doesn't want to rock the boat because others are living there. Yeah, that would be so hard. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would be too. There's a lot of different dynamics of families that have lived in the house, and that's just one of the more recent ones, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so between you're 8 years old and your dad just inherits this weird house across the street and 2020, like, do you remember kind of at what point it struck you that like, maybe someday I could do that house? Like, was this a long-term dream or just kind of something that all of a sudden made sense?
Well, I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, I always thought it was cool. I remember going there for the first time and thinking it was just a cool house. It was big and it was old and it had all these cool features that you really think are fun when you're a kid. Like I remember on the second floor, it had these really deep window ledges. They weren't quite window sills, sorry. It had these really deep window sills. And I just thought like, I could sit on that because I'm still a little kid. Like, that's so cool. But it's not quite a window seat. And the stairwell was really pretty and really windy. And so there's all these cool features that as a kid, I thought were fun. I don't know. I think it was just kind of always in the back of my mind as a teenager and as a young adult. But the practicalities of like, okay, I don't know how to do this. And I would need help. And also, for most of my 20s, I lived in DC. So it just never seemed like it made any sense. And then Eric said, I think this is a good idea when we talked about it. And that really made it more practical. And he's a very practical, analytical person. We knew each other in college and he studied economics and I studied art history. So that kind of gives you an idea of where our brains are. And I think it's a really nice match. And as we've started the renovation planning, it's been really great. And both of us are very confident in the other one's strengths. He's very trusting to my creative vision. Like, I was explaining something I wanted to do to him and he said, I don't understand what you're talking about, but I trust you.
Oh, that's a good feeling. That's a good feeling. Yeah.
Can you train my boyfriend to do that?
Yeah. I was gonna say.
That'd be so nice.
Yeah.
Is he for rent?
My only success has just been telling Andy, just say yes. That's what I say. Just say yes.
Yeah.
We haven't got to the point where he says, but I trust you. It's me saying, just say yes.
I feel very grateful.
Yes.
So given that, how much of the house do you feel like you had sort of designed in your head before even kind of starting this? And how has that process been since it's been in your life for so long? Like, I just can't imagine this. It's so cool.
Well, I've had a lot of time to think about the floor plan. And actually, that was one of the easier things to figure out. There was a couple rooms that were a bit tricky, but in general, to me, the house was sort of telling me how it should be. And one interesting thing about the house is that it's kind of two living wings next to each other. There is kind of what I describe as the main house. So it would have been, that includes like the most earliest iteration of the house. And then next to the house would have been this old kitchen. And eventually the kitchen got built on till the two wings met. And so when Eric and I were initially talking about this renovation, and this was before we'd hired an architect, 2020, very much like me just playing around, drawing on a piece of paper and wandering around the house and thinking of things in my mind. I thought about, well, what if we combine these two wings? But it felt like too big of a house. And we really liked the idea of kind of keeping the wings separate. So now that we've, are proceeding with our renovation, we have these two sections of the house. And the one section, the main section of the house, that's the part of the house where Eric and I are choosing to live in. And then the smaller section of the house that includes that old kitchen, that is its own wing that will have its own kitchen and everything else. And I've been calling it the sister suite because I have two younger sisters and they are wonderful and they are so supportive. They could have raised their hands and said, we want to renovate this house. But they instead, when I told them that Eric and I were serious and wanted to do this, their reaction was, so what you're saying is you and Eric are going to make all the decisions, fix this house, make it nice, and we just get to visit and hang out and enjoy all of the nice stuff? Okay, yes, please, let's do that. So I really wanted them to have kind of a space that they could kind of spend time in that would be private. But you don't have to be a sister to stay in it. I've had to clarify that with
good to know.
Loved ones and friends. And Eric's family lives out of state. So we're thinking, if they come and want to stay for longer, they would be able to have that flexibility. But to answer your first question about the designing the house, the layout and everything, all of the rooms kind of just really organically told me what they wanted to be in a way. And the house has had so many additions over the years. It's really just this hodgepodge of architecture. When I was in college, I took an American art and architecture class and I was like, okay, this is great. I'm going to take this class and I'm going to go home and I'm going to understand this crazy house across the street. And that did not happen.
Yeah.
Because it's really just a medley of everything. I'm very grateful for that now because the house isn't this perfect time capsule of a specific time period in American history. Instead, it's kind of a mix of everything. And it allows us some flexibility about making it feel like our own and not feeling like we're held back by living in a museum or something like that. So right now in the plans that we're working on now, there's only one change we're really making addition-wise, and that was an old porch. We're turning it into a kitchen. And that was just purely because the placement of where a modern home likes to have a kitchen is kind of more centralized, and where we wanted to have a kitchen was this one spot. But as far as the footprint of the house, it's kind of basically the same. There's really not a lot of changes. When I walk through the house, I see it how it is when it's done. And Stacy, I remember talking to you about this at House of Brinson, and we were talking about whether or not you see a project completed or everything you need to do. And I definitely am the kind of person who I walk in and I see where the furniture is going to go and I see how it's going to be when it's done, which helps to feel pretty confident when I'm making decisions about for example, right now, the call I got from my contractor is about the floor tile for the kitchen. And right. I've been very sure about what I want to do for that for a long time, which I'm really relieved because it could be really easy to get analysis paralysis, I think, with this project.
That was an interesting conversation because I remember you talking about, some people are that way. And I was saying, oh, I am not that way. I don't see the whole thing. But that was 2021. And I will say that has been developing.
Oh.
So when we talk about that, I'm like, oh, maybe I have grown a little bit, in the last few years. So yeah, I wouldn't call it my strength, but I'm absolutely able to visualize a little bit better than I certainly could in 2021. So, hey, good news. Old dog, new trick.
And maybe the reason why why this feels like an easy thing to do is because, like you were saying, Daniel, I this house has been in my life since I was 8. And so I have walked through these rooms for a long time. So maybe maybe if it was a brand new old house to me, I would be kind of like, oh, I don't know, where should the kitchen be? But because I could walk around this house with my eyes closed and know where everything is, maybe that's why it's, a bit easier.
On the flip side of that, were there things that you felt sort of tied to or sure about, and then architect comes in and says, no, girl, you're crazy. We can't do that. Like, I feel like that would happen for me. And I'd just be like, what?
That's a good question. I think for the most part, I don't think that there's been anything that they've told that I've been like, I want to do this. And they've said, we can't do that. There's been a couple of rooms that have been really tricky. So for example, the room that's going to be our bathroom. I know this will shock you, but there's not a lot of bathrooms at Poplar Grove or closets.
You don't say.
I know. It's really crazy. And so adding bathrooms is a big priority. We knew which room Eric and I wanted to be our bedroom, and we really wanted us to have a bathroom that would be close by, as ensuite as we could get in an old house. So we played around with the floor plan a bunch, and we settled on turning this room that I think had been a bedroom into a bathroom. It's going to be quite a big bathroom, but it'll be a very luxurious experience. So I am excited about that. The room itself is really odd. It's it's very different from the rest of the house because, as I said, there's been additions over the years, over and over again. And this particular addition is very kind of Gothic. It's got these very sloped ceilings. And so just I knew this was the room we should put the bathroom in. And my architect was like, yes, this makes sense. I see why you want to put the bathroom here. And figuring out where to put things like the tub, the shower, the sink, the toilet, all of those things that made sense in the room based on how tricky the roof line was. Eric and I are both pretty tall, so being able to take a shower and not hit your head on the ceiling was important. So kind of marrying those practical things where is plumbing going to go with the constraints of the room and also making it aesthetically pleasing, that was a little tricky. I actually hired an interior designer to help me with that room in the end because by the time we'd kind of laid it all out on the floor plan with the architect's help, I still felt like I needed a third party to come in and help me fully articulate the design and make sure it was possible and make sure I was communicating it well to our contractors and our architect because I've never done this before. So I found, maybe you follow her on Instagram, Shannon Claire. She's based in DC. I followed her for years and I knew that she had the taste that I also like.
Let's give her an Instagram shout out. What's her account name? Do you remember?
I think it's Shannon Claire Interiors.
Shannon Claire Interiors. Okay.
Yes. In the show notes.
She's really lovely. I also kind of wanted someone a little local. So I liked that she was in DC and she's actually bought a house on the Eastern Shore. So we're going to be Eastern Shore pals now. But working with her was really cool because I talked to her. I explained exactly what I was thinking. And it was a really fun experience. So I'd never worked with an interior designer before. And she told me after we had our meeting, she was like, okay, I'm going to work on this with my team and we're going to send you what we put together and make sure you keep an open mind. Sometimes you have something in your head and then you get something that's a little different and it takes so just sit with it a little bit. And I was like, okay. And so she sent it to me and it was like she was in my brain. I wasn't expecting it to be exactly how I was imagining it, but it was really, really great. And it was so helpful too for my contractors and the architect because they finally, not that they weren't understanding me before, but they were like, oh, okay, we really truly understand now that we're able to see the visuals of all of this. And working with her was also great because, she also had advice on which tub to get. And that tub had the specs that my contractors were able to look at to make sure that the floor joists can support it. And
good points. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a really fun experience. And I'm really happy with everybody that helped with that crazy room.
You're the most positive renovator of old houses I've ever spoken to. Everything's just fun and everyone's doing their jobs.
I know.
I think that there's a reason for that. And it's the reason that I wrote into you guys about things taking so long. And I think that, I'm not going to be naive and say that we are not going to hit any kind of hiccups because of course we are. And we kind of already have. There was this corner of the house where we thought the foundation was okay. And then the contractor could just like push his hand through it. So, things like that. But that's not surprising to me. I'm not surprised. Every time they tell me something like that and they're like, with a tone of bad news, like, Olivia, like, got some bad news. And I'm like, well, this sounds right. The house is about to fall down. So
it's like one of those HGTV moments, where like they want to give you bad news and then you've got to cut to commercial, but you're just like, yeah, it's fine. We'll have to fix it. Yeah. These things happen.
Yeah. I'm more surprised when they're like, we discovered that this thing is in great shape. I'm like, wow, amazing.
Yeah.
But we had so much frustration in the early parts of this renovation when I met you all when we were in the administrative phase. The administrative phase was excruciating. Took so long. It was so frustrating. And I felt like interview me again this time next year and ask me if it was the hardest part. But as I am right now, I believe that was the hardest part because there was very little control that you feel over something like waiting for things to get done. And they're all just on pieces of paper. Like no one's actually swinging hammers and discovering things like your foundation struggling. It's just like, you're waiting for a permit and that kind of stuff.
Right. Okay, so I want to touch on two things because we're running out of time today. So the first thing is I want to just circle back, I guess, a little bit to the papers. And I don't want to go too deep into it because we were talking a lot about that. But uncovering those things, your dad said, or the person who told your dad, this is significant. So some of those significant things were that I guess you found, or they found rather, firsthand accounts of slavery. And I thought that was that the Emerys had owned slaves, I suppose. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that discovery was not a surprise to me, having grown up where I grew up. Slavery was definitely a thing on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And it also didn't surprise me that my ancestors had owned slaves because in addition to the papers, there's just all kinds of other evidence that they participated in this thing. And part of that is there are 2 former slave cabins on the property. When I first went to Poplar Grove when I was a kid, the cabins were in states of falling down, as is everything there. But you could definitely see them. And now the vines and time and entropy have just pulled down the cabins. But you can still very much see where they are in the landscape. And for one of them, there's still a chimney and a hearth. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this period of American history within the area I grew up, within my own family, within the context of where we are now. And I'm really grateful that we got the Poplar Grove papers out of the house because all of those were firsthand accounts and they are now at the Maryland State Archives. And since I helped take them out of the house, historians have been able to look at them and use them for research about that period of time in Maryland's history. And I mean, that's very powerful. Like, it's so important to have those firsthand records. And then I thought about like how we can work within this history now. And so the first thing I got to do is be able to live in this house because I can't do any of the things I'd like to do until I can, spend the night there and really make that a home. So something that I've been thinking about with the cabins is how to incorporate them there were 2 things that I thought about. I was like, well, first of all, I don't want to like remove them from the landscape because that seems like a cowardly thing to do. Like, I don't want it to seem like they were never there. And then I was thinking about, well, I don't want to kind of rebuild the structure because from a practical standpoint, that just becomes a structure that you have to maintain. Also, I can't promise that some descendant of mine won't do something stupid with it and like turn it into an Airbnb cottage or something like that and kind of like
she shed.
Yes.
Yeah, good points.
Right. Yeah. You just don't know what people in the future are going to do. And so I've been thinking about how to memorialize those places in the landscape. And since the brick foundations are you can still see them there. My plan right now is I hope to take out all of the poison ivy and mulberry and all kinds of plants and everything that have been making a home in those spaces and replace any of the bricks in the foundation that have fallen down. So they're very much like these fingerprints in the landscape. And I hope to be a useful resource with this terrible history that I am part of as a descendant. And I really would love for Poplar Grove and its history to be a resource for people like historians who are using the Poplar Grove papers for their work and other people. And one of the people who I really am hoping I can have come to Poplar Grove, and I have his book here, is this guy. And his name is Joseph McGill. And he wrote this book called Sleeping with the Ancestors. And he is in South Carolina. He is a guy who he started this thing called the Slave Dwelling Project. And
yes, I'm familiar.
Yes. Okay. So you know about him.
Yeah. So I'll link, I think on Instagram, I'll also link this book. So yeah. Oh, but go ahead. Continue, please.
Well, you probably know that he does these kind of history lessons where he goes to a place where enslaved people would have lived. And he sometimes does like an overnight where he spends the night there and other people, who want to spend the night there too. And there's these conversations about American history and slavery, and it's really powerful. I read about him, and then I actually met him. I was on a trip with my girlfriends from high school to Charleston, South Carolina. And I actually went early to the trip so that I could go to Magnolia Plantation in the hopes of meeting him. And I did meet him, and I met him, and I said, I have this old house. I have these cabins. We'd love for you to come. And he was so gracious, and he was like, I am going to come. Do not invite me if you don't want me to come.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it, Daniel?
I'm already planning my trip.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Well, you're definitely welcome to come too.
In the sister suite. We'll stay in the sister suite.
See, you don't have to be a sister to stay in the sister suite. But I would love to have someone like Joseph McGill and other people who are doing this research about this part of American history to be able to use Poplar Grove as a resource. And I think it doesn't feel great to think about your ancestors' participation in something that I don't think is morally okay. But I can do things now that are, I hope, helpful and to be a resource. And I think that there is a lot of generosity and grace given to, I've experienced this as someone outside of communities like Black communities. If, you approach with curiosity and interest, an attitude of how can I be helpful? I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. And so I just hope that Poplar Grove and this chapter of that history can be helpful for people like Joseph McGill and others who are doing research into this kind of really important parts of American history that some people have a really hard time dealing with, especially right now.
Yeah.
I know you can't predict the future, but I guess where are we right now in the renovation? And do you have a sense of how much longer until you can actually sleep at night there?
I can actually. I really love our contractors and our architect, and they are really organized, and they have this incredible schedule, and they are really sticking to it.
I've never heard anyone say any of these.
I know.
What is your magic? This is like the magical interview.
Are they for rent? Can I just send them all?
I feel very, very lucky. I really do. I'm really happy with how things are going. But we are scheduled to be done at the end of this year. So I think that the hope was that we could be there around Thanksgiving, but I think that was always kind of a bit of a stretch. So right now, December, which I still feel is very soon and exciting. We have had a little bit of a slowdown because of the weather. It's been extremely cold this winter, which, as you all know, impacts how things set. And it's been raining and things like that. But we'll see if we stay on the schedule, but that's the goal for now. And everybody is working really hard, and our lovely contractors, they have a reputation of being either on time or as close to it as possible. So I'm very hopeful. Like I said, I don't want to be naive. I've never done this before, but they haven't given me any reason to doubt them yet.
Well, it sounds like there's a real chance that Santa will be visiting your new house by December.
It's crazy
or you'll
to
be
think about.
Ringing in the new year, one of the two.
Yeah.
So much good luck sent your way.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show today.
Great to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to True Tales from Old Houses, and thank you to Natalie for the chimney question and to our guest, Olivia. Many thanks to our sponsors, again, The Window Course, Sutherland Wells, Repaint Studios, and Old House Hub.
Don't forget there's still time to enter the giveaway for Stacy and Scott's book. You can do it at truetalesfromoldhouses.com/giveaway. To continue the conversation, please follow us over on Facebook or Instagram at True Tales from Old Houses. You can follow me individually at Daniel Cantor and Stacy at Blake Hill House.
You can send us messages or voicemails. We love both. And if you liked today's episode, hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening right now. It's free, and it helps more old house lovers find us. We've got a fun new mini-sode headed your way next week. So until next time.
See you on Monday.